The conference room felt like ice. Mark Alder sat across from me, signing papers without looking up. His expensive pen scratched against the document. My termination letter. 10 years of my life reduced to a signature. Effective immediately, he said, sliding the folder toward me. My hands stayed folded in my lap. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing them shake. Around the table, my team stared at their phones, the wall, anywhere but at me. Cowards. Every single one of them knew this was coming. Is there a reason? Asked, keeping my voice steady. Mark finally looked up, his expression blank. Restructuring. Nothing personal, Tessa. Nothing personal. 10 years of 60-hour weeks, missed birthdays, cancelled vacations. All nothing personal. I felt something crack inside my chest, but my face stayed calm. I even smiled. I understand, I lied. Security appeared at the door like vultures. Mark stood, buttoning his suit jacket. HR will handle the details. We appreciate your contributions. Contributions. As if I'd been some minor player in a story he wrote. I rose from my chair, and that's when I saw it, the flash of relief in his eyes. He wanted me gone. This wasn't about budgets or restructuring. This was personal. The security guard handed me a cardboard box. Standard procedure, he said, avoiding my eyes. I walked back to my desk, the one I'd sat at for 10 years, and started packing. Family photos. Coffee mug my daughter made in 3rd grade. The industry award I'd won last year. The one with Mark's name engraved above mine, even though I'd done all the work. People pretended not to watch. Keyboards clicked louder than necessary. Phone calls became suddenly urgent. Nobody said goodbye. I caught my reflection in the glass wall. A woman holding a box of her entire professional life. Silent. Erased. Was it really budget cuts? Whispered Jamie from accounting. I stopped, turned to face her. No. It was planned. Her face went pale. She knew something. Maybe everyone knew something. Filed that away. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside, turned around, and looked at the office one last time. The floor where I'd built everything. Mark stood in his corner office, watching me through the glass. He raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. Smiled back. That smile would haunt him. My name is Tessa Vaughn. I'm 42 years old, and until 30 minutes ago, I was the director of operations at Alder & Company, one of the fastest-growing consulting firms in the Northeast. I say was because Mark Alder just erased me from the company I helped build. I sat in my car in the parking garage, staring at my ID badge. The photo showed a younger version of me, back when I still believed hard work and loyalty meant something. Back when I thought the system rewarded merit. Turns out it doesn't. It rewards whoever controls the narrative. My phone buzzed. Text messages poured in. Are you okay? What happened? This is insane. Word traveled fast. In an hour everyone would know. Tessa Vaughn fired. Tessa Vaughn thrown away like garbage. I turned off my phone. I needed silence. I needed to think. Because sitting in that parking garage, clutching a cardboard box, I made a decision. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't fade away quietly like Mark expected. I would make him regret every single moment of this day. But first I needed to remember how it all started. 1 year earlier everything changed. The senior VP position opened up. The role I'd been training for, the promotion everyone said I deserved. I'd run the numbers, built the client relationships, restructured our entire operational model. The job was mine. Then Mark called me into his office. Tessa, you're incredible at what you do, he began. I should have heard the warning in those words. Compliments from Mark always came with conditions. But you're indispensable where you are. We need you running operations, not stuck in executive meetings all day. Translation. You're too useful as my workhorse to promote. What about the VP role? Asked carefully. He smiled. I'm taking it myself. Consolidating leadership. You understand. I understood perfectly. He'd watched me build the framework for that position, learned from my strategies, then stepped into the role I'd created. And I was supposed to smile and accept it. Of course, I said. Congratulations. He shook my hand, already moving on to his next meeting. I walked back to my desk, sat down, and stared at my computer screen. Something inside me broke that day. Not loudly. Just a quiet crack like ice forming on a lake. I smiled at everyone who congratulated Mark. But inside I started watching. 6 months before my termination, Mark presented his proposal to the board. I sat in the back of the conference room, watching him display my research, my data, my recommendations. Every slide was mine. Every strategy came from months of my work. He didn't mention my name once. This integrated approach will cut costs by 18% while improving client satisfaction, Mark explained, gesturing at the graphs I'd created. It's about working smarter, not harder. The board nodded, impressed. One director asked about implementation challenges. Mark answered using the exact words from my memo, the one I'd sent him last Tuesday. Across the table, he caught my eye and winked. Actually winked. Teamwork makes the dream work, right, Tessa? He announced to the room. Everyone laughed. I laughed too, because what else could I do? But that laugh tasted wrong. Bitter. Like swallowing broken glass. After the meeting, people congratulated Mark. Brilliant strategic thinking, they said. Real leadership. He soaked it up, puffing his chest, shaking hands like a politician. Nobody asked who actually did the work. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and made a list. Every project Mark had stolen. Every idea he'd claimed. Every moment of credit I'd lost. The list filled 2 pages. I put it in a drawer and went to bed. But I didn't forget. The company gala happened 3 months before everything fell apart. Black tie event, expensive hotel, speeches about excellence and teamwork. I wore the blue dress I'd bought on sale, feeling invisible among the designer gowns. Mark stood at the podium, champagne in hand, giving his annual toast. I want to thank the people who make me look good, he announced, grinning at the crowd. The team behind the scenes, working hard every day. He listed names, praised accomplishments, shared anecdotes. My name never left his lips. I stood in the back, holding my drink, watching him bask in applause for achievements I'd delivered. Around me, people whispered, Mark's really turned this company around. Best CEO we've ever had. Something shifted in me that night. I stopped feeling hurt. Hurt was passive, useless. Instead, I felt clarity. I'd spent 10 years being loyal to someone who saw me as a tool, not a person. I'd protected him, covered his mistakes, made him look brilliant. And for what? To be erased from the story he told about his own success. I set down my champagne and left the gala early. That night I stopped being loyal to Mark Alder. I started observing him. I became a student of Mark's patterns. Every email, every decision, every interaction. I watched it all with new eyes. And what I saw was stunning in its carelessness. He lied constantly. Small lies mostly. Exaggerated timelines to clients. Overpromised results to the board. Took credit for other people's ideas so smoothly that even I had to admire the skill. But lies leave trails. Emails that contradicted his verbal promises. Memos that exposed his timeline manipulations. Documentation that proved who actually created what. I started keeping copies. Not obviously, I wasn't stupid. Just careful backups of anything interesting. A forwarded email to my personal account here. A screenshot there. Innocent-looking records of work that might become important later. Mark never noticed. Why would he? I was just Tessa, dependable Tessa, always there to fix his problems and clean up his messes. His arrogance made him blind. 3 months of observation taught me everything I needed to know. Mark Alder was good at taking credit, but terrible at actually doing the work. The company ran on the efforts of people like me. People he treated as invisible. I realized something important. I wasn't the only one he'd used. And angry people make excellent allies. Mark pushed hard for a merger with Berkshire Analytics. He presented it as visionary thinking, A bold move that would double our market share. The board hesitated. The numbers looked aggressive. Tessa, I need you to run the financial models, Mark told me. Make this work. I analyzed everything. The merger was possible but risky. Berkshire had hidden debt, messy contracts, and a toxic work culture. We'd be absorbing their problems along with their client base. I laid out my concerns in a detailed report. Mark read it, then smiled. You worry too much. This is about vision, not spreadsheets. He presented a modified version of my analysis to the board, one that downplayed the risks and highlighted the potential. When directors asked questions, he referenced extensive research without mentioning who actually did it. The board approved the merger. I watched it happen with perfect calm. I knew what Mark didn't. I'd kept the original reports. Every version, every revision, every concern I'd raised that he'd ignored. Complete documentation of his recklessness. Great work on this, Mark, the board chair said after the vote. Mark beamed. Just doing what's best for the company. I smiled and took notes. Helpful, invisible Tessa, always supporting the team. Inside, I was building something Mark would never see coming. 2 months before my termination, Mark called me into his office. I knew immediately something was wrong. His expression was too carefully neutral. Sit down, Tessa. Sep. He drummed his fingers on the desk, choosing his words. You've been with us a long time. 10 years is significant. Almost 10, I corrected. Anniversary's next month. Right. Look, I'll be direct. You've outgrown your attitude here. The words hit like a slap. My attitude. You're not as adaptable as you used to be. I need team players, people who trust my vision without constant questions. Translation. You're not a pushover anymore. You make me explain my decisions. You force me to think. I see, I said quietly. It's not personal. But I need to consider what's best for the company going forward. There it was. The threat, delivered with corporate polish. Get back in line or get out. I looked at Mark Alder, this man who'd stolen my work, erased my contributions, and now wanted me grateful for the privilege of being used. I understand completely, I told him. He smiled, relieved. I knew you would. You're a professional. I left his office and went straight to the bathroom. Locked myself in a stall. Pressed my palms against my eyes. I didn't cry. But I wanted to. That night, Mark decided to fire me. I know because I found the email later. I discovered my own termination letter by accident. Mark had saved it in the shared operations folder instead of his private files. Careless but typical. He never expected anyone to look. The document was dated 3 weeks before my actual firing. Termination proposal. Tessa Vaughn in bold letters. Below, a list of justifications. Restructuring needs. Attitude concerns. Cost reduction opportunities. I read it twice. Name. My job. My entire career, summarized in corporate speak that meant nothing. Replacement candidates appeared at the bottom. 3 names, all younger, all cheaper than me. Mark had been planning this for weeks. Smiling at me in meetings while drafting my execution. I should have screamed. Should have stormed into his office. Should have done something dramatic. Instead, I quietly closed the file. Cleared my browser history. Walked back to my desk like nothing happened. That night, I forwarded the document to my personal email. Then I forwarded every other piece of evidence I'd been collecting. Emails, reports, financial models. Mark's lies. Documented and dated. I backed up everything twice. Then I sat in my home office and cried. Not because I was scared. Because I'd wasted 10 years on someone who saw me as disposable. Because I'd believed hard work mattered. But I was done crying after that night. I had work to do. The termination meeting happened exactly as Mark planned. The glass conference room. The signed papers. Security waiting. But this time I understood everything behind that moment. When Mark avoided my eyes, I knew it was guilt disguised as professionalism. When my team stayed silent, I knew they'd been warned to say nothing. When security appeared with a cardboard box, I knew Mark wanted me gone fast, before I could cause problems. "You'll regret this," I whispered as I stood to leave. Mark barely looked up. "I'm sorry you feel that way." Not a threat. Prophecy. I took my box and walked out of Alder and Company for the last time. The elevator doors closed on my old life. When they opened on the parking garage, I stepped into my new one. No tears. No dramatic exit. Just silence. Mark expected me to spiral, to post angry rants on social media, to badmouth him to everyone who'd listen. Fired employees always did that. They made noise, burned bridges, proved they deserved to be let go. I did none of those things. I disappeared. And in that silence, I started building something Mark would never expect. Revenge. Well, something better. The first week after my termination, I didn't answer calls. Didn't check messages. Didn't explain to anyone what happened. People worried. "Are you okay? What are you doing? Do you need help?" I needed space. Every morning I ran. Every afternoon I organized my documentation. Every evening I researched my next move. No emotion. No rushing. Just careful, methodical planning. The Berkshire merger was already showing cracks. I'd predicted the problems. Mark had ignored them. Now the issues were becoming visible. Delayed integration. Client complaints. Budget overruns. Mark would be scrambling to fix it. And scrambling made people careless. Former colleagues reached out quietly. "You didn't deserve that. Mark's losing it without you. Things are chaos here." I listened. Thanked them. I asked gentle questions about what was happening at the company. Information flowed my way like water finding cracks. Then came the message that changed everything. From Andrew Chen, Mark's former VP who'd left 6 months ago. "I have something you need to see. Coffee." We met at a quiet cafe. Andrew slid an envelope across the table. "What is this?" he asked. "Proof that Mark isn't who he pretends to be. I kept it as insurance, but you'll make better use of it." Inside was an email chain showing Mark had manipulated financial projections during the Berkshire merger talks. Not illegal exactly, but unethical enough to destroy him if it became public. I looked at Andrew. "Why give this to me?" He smiled grimly. "Because he did to you what he did to me. And someone needs to stop him." I took a consulting position at Sterling Solutions, one of Alder and Company's main competitors. Not out of spite, out of strategy. I needed a platform, credibility, and resources. Sterling's CEO, Patricia Wells, had heard about my termination. "Mark Alder is a fool," she said during my interview. "Losing you is his biggest mistake." "I'm just looking for a fresh start," I replied carefully. She studied me. "I think you're looking for something more than that. And I'm fine with it, as long as Sterling benefits." Smart woman. I started immediately. My first project. Analyzing market opportunities in exactly the space where Alder and Company operated. I knew their weaknesses because I'd built around them for 10 years. Within a month, I developed a proposal that directly challenged their newest service offering. Better pricing. Stronger guarantees. Smarter positioning. Patricia loved it. "This is aggressive. You're declaring war." "I'm just doing good work," I said innocently. The proposal launched. Within 2 weeks, Alder and Company lost 3 major clients to us. Their press release tried to spin it as normal market competition. But I saw the panic underneath. Mark called an emergency staff meeting according to my sources. Promised to fight back. Blamed everyone except himself. I watched from Sterling's office as his carefully constructed empire started showing cracks. And I was just getting started. The business magazine profile came next. A journalist named Claire Anderson reached out, writing a piece about successful career transitions. She'd heard about my move to Sterling. We met for coffee. Claire was sharp, asked good questions. "Why did you leave Alder and Company?" she asked. Smiled. "Sometimes you outgrow a place." They're focused on one approach. I wanted to explore others. There are rumors you were pushed out. There are always rumors. She studied me. Off the record, what really happened? I paused, weighing my words carefully. Off the record. I spent 10 years building something, watching someone else take credit, and realizing I deserved better. This isn't about revenge. It's about knowing your worth. Claire's eyes lit up. That quote was gold for her story. The article published 2 weeks later. From invisible to unstoppable. How one executive reclaimed her career. It didn't name Mark directly, but anyone in the industry could read between the lines. A CEO who prioritizes credit over competence eventually loses both, I was quoted as saying. The article went viral in business circles. People shared it, commented, started asking questions about companies that undervalue experienced workers. Mark's phone probably rang off the hook. People asking if the article was about him. He'd really pushed out his director of operations. He couldn't deny it without admitting he'd read it. Couldn't confirm it without looking terrible. I'd trapped him in his own narrative. The Berkshire merger collapsed 2 months after my termination. Exactly as I'd predicted in my original analysis, the one Mark had ignored. Berkshire's hidden debts became public. Contract disputes emerged. Clients fled. The integration that was supposed to take 6 months stalled at 12 with no end in sight. Alder and Company stock price dropped. Board members demanded answers. Mark blamed the Berkshire team, blamed market conditions, blamed everyone except his own reckless decision-making. But the board had questions. Why hadn't anyone flagged these risks earlier? Someone leaked my original analysis, the one outlining every problem that eventually occurred. My name was on it. My warnings, documented and ignored. I didn't leak it. Didn't need to. Angry employees did that for me. The board called Mark in for an emergency meeting. He emerged looking pale. Then came the VP defection. Andrew's replacement at Alder and Company, a sharp woman named Kimberly, accepted a position at Sterling. When she arrived, she brought something interesting. A complete email chain showing Mark's pattern of taking credit for other people's work. I kept these, Kimberly explained, because I knew eventually I'd need proof I actually did my job. Smart woman. Mark created an army of people with documentation of his lies. Why are you giving this to me? Yes. She smiled. Because you're the only one brave enough to use it. I sat across from Claire Anderson again. Same cafe, different conversation. I have a story, I told her. But it needs to be handled carefully. I didn't give her Mark's name. Didn't make accusations. Just told her a story about a CEO at a consulting firm who systematically took credit for employees' work, pushed out experienced staff, and made reckless business decisions while blaming everyone else for failures. This is serious, Claire said. Can you prove it? I slid a folder across the table. Inside, email chains, project timelines, financial analyses. Everything documented, nothing illegal, but deeply unethical. Where did you get this? People who are tired of being invisible. The story published 1 week later. The emperor has no clothes. When CEOs succeed on others' sacrifices. It didn't name Mark, but it described Alder and Company's recent struggles, the Berkshire merger disaster, and a pattern of leadership taking credit while avoiding accountability. The industry exploded. People shared the article, started their own stories about similar experiences. The conversation shifted from individual complaints to systemic problems. Mark's phone rang constantly. Board members, investors, clients wanting reassurance. He issued a statement denying everything. These are baseless accusations from disgruntled former employees. But denying made it worse. Now everyone was talking about it. His carefully built reputation cracked wider. The merger officially failed 3 months after my termination. Berkshire withdrew, citing irreconcilable differences. Translation. Alder and Company couldn't deliver what Mark had promised. The financial damage was massive. Millions spent on integration. Clients lost in the chaos. Market confidence shattered. Investors demanded explanations. The board launched an internal investigation. Mark scrambled to control the narrative, but too many people were talking. Employees who'd stayed silent started speaking up. He always took credit for our work. He ignored warnings about Berkshire. He fired anyone who questioned him. The dam broke. One board member resigned publicly, citing concerns about leadership integrity. Another called for Mark's removal. Stock prices tumbled further. Mark fired half his staff, trying to blame them for everything. But that only created more angry ex-employees with stories to tell and evidence to share. His empire was collapsing one brick at a time. And I watched from Sterling's office, building proposals, winning clients, doing exactly what I'd always done. Except now people knew my name. Patricia promoted me to senior director. You've brought us more new business in 3 months than we saw all last year. I'm just doing my job, I replied. She laughed. No, Tessa. You're rewriting the whole industry. Mark called me. My phone lit up with his name for the first time since my termination. I stared at it. 4 months of silence, and now he wanted to talk. I let it ring. He called again an hour later. Again the next day. 3 times the day after that. I never answered. What could he possibly say? Sorry for stealing your work. Sorry for firing you. Sorry for spending 10 years treating you like a disposable tool. Words meant nothing now. On his 5th call he left a voicemail. Tessa, we need to talk. This situation is getting out of hand. Whatever you're doing, it needs to stop. Call me back. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. He thought I was orchestrating some campaign against him. He couldn't imagine that people were simply tired of protecting him. That his own actions had created an army of enemies. I didn't need to do anything except exist and succeed. His paranoia would do the rest. 2 days later, another voicemail. Tessa, please. I know we didn't end on good terms, but this is affecting the whole company. People who had nothing to do with your termination are suffering. I almost laughed. Now he cared about other people. I saved that voicemail. Not to use it. Just to remember what desperation sounded like. I ran into Mark at an industry conference. Pure chance. I was there representing Sterling. He was there trying to salvage Alder and Company's reputation. He spotted me across the hotel lobby. For a moment we just looked at each other. He'd lost weight. His expensive suit hung a bit loose. Dark circles under his eyes suggested too many sleepless nights. He crossed the lobby toward me. People watched. Tessa, he said quietly. You look well. Thank you. So do you. Polite lie. His jaw tightened. Can we talk? Privately. I glanced at my watch. I have a panel in 20 minutes. After then. I studied his face. Saw desperation there. Anger. Maybe even regret. Sure, I agreed. We met in a quiet corner of the hotel bar. He ordered scotch. I ordered water. You set me up, he said finally, his voice low and bitter. I raised an eyebrow. How exactly did I set you up, Mark? The article. The leaks. Turning the board against me. I wrote an article about career transitions. Other people shared their own experiences. As for your board, maybe they're asking questions they should have asked years ago. You poisoned everyone against me. No, Mark. You did. He stared at me, comprehension slowly dawning. You really believe that? I know that. I watched you for 10 years. I watched you take credit, push people out, ignore warnings. This isn't me destroying you. This is you finally facing consequences. He finished his scotch. I made one mistake with you. Just one. I should have recognized your value. You should have recognized my humanity. Silence stretched between us. Finally Mark stood. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For what, specifically? He couldn't answer. He didn't even know what he should be apologizing for. I watched him walk away, smaller somehow than the man who'd signed my termination papers. Evidence of financial misrepresentation surfaced 1 week after the conference. Not from me, from the board's internal investigation. Mark had inflated revenue projections to secure merger approval. He'd hidden cost overruns. He'd presented modified financial models to investors while keeping the real numbers to himself. The board demanded his resignation. This time, the same pen he'd used to sign my termination papers signed his own exit agreement. I heard about it from Kimberly. He's out. Effective immediately. The board appointed an interim CEO and they're doing a complete leadership restructure. How's he taking it? Not well. Security had to escort him out. He was screaming about betrayal, about being set up, about how everything was everyone else's fault. The irony was beautiful. Mark, who'd spent years blaming others for his own failures, couldn't accept responsibility even at the end. His severance package was minimal. No golden parachute, no consulting position. Just a quiet exit and a ruined reputation. Within a month, I heard he'd lost most of his industry contacts. Nobody wanted to be associated with the CEO who'd crashed a company through arrogance and fraud. He tried reaching out to former colleagues. Most ignored him. He became what he'd tried to make me, invisible. 6 months after my termination, Patricia called me into her office. Tessa, the board has approved a new position. Global Director of Strategic Operations. I'd like you to take it. Blink. That's a C-suite level role. You've earned it. You've brought in $15 million in new business. You've revolutionized how we approach client relationships. You've made Sterling an industry leader. I was just doing my job. She smiled. That's exactly why you're perfect for this role. You don't need credit to do excellent work. But you deserve it anyway. The promotion came with everything Mark had denied me. Recognition, compensation, respect. My office overlooked the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows showing a skyline that felt like possibility. I hung one photograph on my wall. Me standing outside Alder and Company on the day I was fired, holding that cardboard box. I looked small in the photo. Defeated. But I kept it as a reminder. Not of pain but of transformation. That woman in the photo thought her career was ending. She didn't know she was about to begin. Mark tried to rebuild. I heard through industry channels that he'd started consulting independently, trying to leverage his experience. But reputation matters. Clients researched him, found the articles, the leaked information, the trail of people he'd used and discarded. Nobody hired him. He'd lost everything he'd built on other people's backs. I didn't celebrate his downfall. Didn't gloat. Just noted it and moved on. Because here's what I learned. Revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about refusing to let them destroy you. Mark thought firing me would erase me from his story. Instead, it freed me to write my own. At Sterling, I built programs to recognize employee contributions. Created transparent promotion pathways. Implemented policies preventing leaders from taking credit for others' work. You're changing the culture here, Patricia told me. I'm just making sure people are valued, I replied. Because I remembered what it felt like to be invisible. To work hard and watch someone else shine. To give everything and receive nothing. I would never let that happen to anyone on my team. 1 year after my termination, Alder and Company declared bankruptcy. The Berkshire merger damage, combined with the exodus of talented employees and the reputational collapse, had been too much. The company that erased me from its story no longer existed. Mark sent me an email. The first communication in months. Tessa, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. But I wanted you to know I understand now what I did wrong. I took talented people for granted. I thought success was about me, not about the team. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I read it 3 times. Then I wrote back. Thank you for the apology. I hope you find a path forward that treats people better. Best wishes. Brief. Professional. Final. I didn't forgive him. But I didn't need to carry anger anymore either. He'd given me the greatest gift, even if he hadn't meant to, freedom. Sterling Solutions thrived. Under my leadership, the Strategic Operations Division became the company's most profitable unit. We won industry awards, got featured in business magazines, became the company people wanted to work for. My daughter graduated college. At the ceremony, she hugged me and whispered, "I'm proud of you, Mom. For everything." She'd watched me get fired, watched me struggle with anger and hurt, watched me choose to build instead of destroy. "You taught me something important," she said. "That being knocked down isn't the end. It's just a chance to get back up stronger." I thought about that cardboard box, that horrible walk out of Alder and Company, that moment when everything felt finished. If someone had told me then what the next year would bring, I wouldn't have believed them. But life doesn't ask for belief. It asks for persistence. I sit in my office now, looking out at the city. The same city where I once felt small and powerless. Except I was never powerless. I just didn't know my own strength yet. Mark taught me something valuable, though he never meant to. He taught me that people who take credit without doing work eventually run out of tricks. That arrogance creates enemies. That success built on using others will always collapse. More importantly, he taught me what kind of leader I never wanted to be. My team knows I see them. Their work has their names on it. Their achievements are celebrated. Their voices matter. 'Cause I remember what silence feels like. People ask if I'm bitter about the 10 years I gave to Alder and Company. I'm not. Those years taught me skills, built my expertise, showed me exactly what I was capable of enduring and overcoming. Mark Alder didn't destroy me. He freed me. And the woman who walked out of that building with a cardboard box, she's gone. In her place stands someone stronger, wiser, and impossible to erase. Power isn't taken from others. It's reclaimed from within. And I'm never giving mine away again.